Hello there, dear viewer. Today I have a collection update to share with you. These are just some of the fantastic Blu-ray and 4K titles that I've been adding to my collection and just enjoying the films immensely. Some great films here. I'm sure many people will not have heard of some of these films. So if anything takes your fancy, do note it down, put it on your watch list, and perhaps you'll find something new to love. Let's start off with a 4K disc, which I was so surprised when this film got announced. It's The Talk of the Town, the classic George Stevens movie starring Cary Grant. This is a beautiful film, first and foremost, and the 4K restoration on this disc looks stunning. Sony have such a good track record with bringing these films to the 4K format and just doing a beautiful job, and this disc is no different. Cary Grant plays a man who escapes from jail after being accused of arson, and while he is on the run, he finds this small house and hides out there. He meets Jean Arthur's character, and instantly there is this charisma between the two. And it's some of the dialogue is so funny, and he has to hide in the attic while the tenant of the house has come in, and they have to try and convince this tenant that Cary Grant is innocent, and then you want to find the real people who framed him for this. It's just a brilliant comedy with great performances from the main actors. George Stevens, fantastic director. The film was nominated for a load of Academy Awards, including Best Picture, so it's a fantastic film. There aren't too many special features here, just an audio commentary and a featurette talking about the film, but that's beside the point because the film itself looks beautiful, and I highly recommend this for lovers of classic Hollywood cinema. Another Sony 4K that I got in from the US is Little Women. This is the 1990s version, and many people were excited for this to come out because we had the Greta Gerwig recent film come out on 4K in the big Columbia Classics box, and a lot of people were actually saying they wish this was included there rather than that version. I actually find both films charming in their different ways, and it's great to have this on the format. It looks beautiful. Sony have done a great job again. If you don't know the story of Little Women, well, you need to see one of the films or read the book, because it's a classic story for good reason about these four young girls who live with their mother, and they all have different characters, these girls. They all kind of symbolize different attributes, and we get to see how they change over time, the good and the bad that they spend with each other. It's just a very touching story, and I think it's a great film, and I'm so glad that this version came to 4K from Sony. A great job. Now another 4K from Sony, this time no slipcover on this one, Legends of the Fall, the film from Edward Zwick, starring Brad Pitt, Aidan Quinn and Anthony Hopkins, about this family of boys who live with their father, and they all decide to go off to war. And this has great consequences for the family unit. And in many ways, this actually kind of makes a good comparison piece to Little Women, because it is about seeing this group of boys as they grow up and how their family changes over time and the problems that they face, their relationship with their father, who is very strict at times, but also is there for them when they need him at times. This is also a very beautiful movie, these great landscape sequences, and it looks excellent on the 4K disc. Absolutely no complaints from me. The film itself, I was rewatching it on this disc, and at times it gets too overly sentimental, so sometimes I kind of get taken out of the experience. But it is very much one of those 1990s kind of epic family stories. Some people would say this is kind of the Oscar bait type of movie, and it did actually win one Oscar. It says on the front it won Best Cinematography, which I can agree with. The film does look rather beautiful, especially on the 4K disc. I really like the music by James Horner as well, and out of all the performances in the film, Anthony Hopkins gives a great performance. I mean, what do you expect? He's one of the best actors ever, if you ask me. There are multiple commentaries and some behind the scenes stuff on here as well. So this is a great release of a film. If you enjoy this is definitely worth getting. The next 4K I watched and greatly enjoyed was Transformers 1, which I missed at the cinema when it came out. This is the origin story of Optimus Prime and Megatron before they become sworn enemies. And we see them growing up together where they're very friendly, they are best friends, and they aren't yet Transformers. They are just the lowly minor workers. But then they get granted the ability to become Transformers, and then this leads to some dire consequences for their friendship. I love the animation style on this one. It looks stunning on the 4K disc. It blew me away when I was watching this the other day. Because of the nature of this story, and we know where it's leading to between these two characters, It seems like it draws a lot of inspiration from the Star Wars prequels, particularly Revenge of the Sith. And once I started seeing these things, I couldn't stop seeing little bits that led me to think of the Star Wars prequels, which I love, by the way. So Transformers 1 was a great experience watching it on the 4K. And there are some good special features here going behind the scenes about how the film was made. They talk about how they wanted to do the origin story for Optimus Prime and Megatron ages ago, but they couldn't really do it in live action because the film would have cost so much money. So doing it in animation was the best way to do it for them, and I think the final result really worked. And then sticking with animation, but this isn't a 4K disc, it's a Blu-ray. We finally got The Secrets of NIMH on Blu-ray here in the UK from Eureka as part of the Masters of Cinema collection. Now, I love this film, and I remember reading the book Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of NIMH at school, in primary school when I was very young, and loving that book. And then we watched the film at school as well. And I remember at the time I was very much into watching Disney films on videotape at home. So I was getting into these kind of films, but I noticed there was a difference between this and the Disney films. Of course, the animation style is similar because you have Don Bluth and some of the other Disney people working on this film. But there is a darker edge to this film, which was very noticeable for me at a young age. It's about these mice who come to know about these rats who have this great technology, but some of them are good, some of them are evil, and it puts people in danger. And it's this great fantasy adventure story. I think it's one of a kind, and this is a film that I've wanted to get on Blu-ray for a very long time. And finally, it's here. As it's a Eureka release, they've done an excellent job with the special features, including some new interviews, archival commentaries, and other things about the film. So a fantastic release with a slipcover if you get the initial print run. So if you're a fan of this film, rejoice, because it's finally here on Blu-ray. Now I have two Blu-rays here which I really want to talk about, because these are from the label Other Parties, which is a very recently started label here in the UK, which has an aim of presenting films which otherwise wouldn't get shown by other labels. Films that tell interesting stories that may not be mainstream, may not be the kind of things world cinema lovers would typically go for. But both of these films are excellent. I'm so glad they have Blu-ray releases here in the UK. First, I'll talk about the film Variety. This is a film from the 1980s, which is about this young woman in New York who gets this job working at this theatre where they show adult movies. And she is quite unassuming at the start, maybe a bit prudish, but then as she gets to know some of the men who come to this theatre to watch the films, her own curiosity about her own sexuality and desires starts to grow and manifest from there. I've never seen Variety before. This is now part of the canon of films in my head about the kind of seedier side of New York City and what goes on underneath the surface. And if I was ever to put on a season of films at a cinema about New York City and the underbelly of things, then Variety is one that I would definitely show. As well as the film, there are some special features on here. There's an audio commentary with the director as she talks about certain scenes in the film. There is an introduction by her, and then also inside the case there is a booklet as well. It's worth mentioning that these are limited edition releases, so they're limited to 300 copies each. So if you want to get these before they go, definitely head over to the Other Parties website. I'll include links to their website and social media in the description of this video, because I think it's well worth going over and supporting them, because hopefully then we can get more releases just like these. And then we come to Bushman, which is a fantastic film from the early 1970s about this young man who's come from Nigeria to live in San Francisco. And he starts to learn more about American society and the interactions between white people and black people and the history of that in America, which is not familiar to him because he's come from Nigeria. So this is an outsider's look at American life at the time. And I won't spoil anything about the surprises in this film, but it very much starts to blend fiction with reality. And the making of this film gets mixed in with the film and the story itself. And it was just an amazing experience watching this. This instantly shot up to one of the best things that I've watched recently. And the presentation of the film on this Blu-ray is taken from a recent 4K print of the film. So it looks beautiful as well. And there's a great snapshot into San Francisco in the 1970s. Some brilliant filmmaking as well, great camera work, great shots. It's kind of shot in this verite style, and I think it's a wonderful film. You also have another film from the director David Schickel on the special features called Give Me a Riddle, which is not in as great quality as this film, so don't expect anything great from the quality, but I'd never seen that film as well. And it's important because it does tie into the things that are explored in Bushman. There's also a great selected scene commentary track on here. There's this nice poem that's read out that's about the film. And inside as well, you do get a booklet, just like with Variety. But this is also limited to 300 copies, so if you want to get one before they go, do head over to the other party's website. I'll include a link in the description. Next, I have the film Nine Queens, an amazing film, which I'm not sure why more people aren't talking about this. An Argentinian film from the late 90s, early 2000s era. It's a story about these two con men, one who is a rookie and one who is an experienced con man. And the experienced one ends up meeting the rookie at the start of the film, and he saves him from a job which is going horribly wrong. So together they form this relationship, and they go on to try and pull off one of the biggest jobs, which is the Nine Queens, these very rare stamps that are worth a lot of money, and they are going to try and steal them. And it looks excellent on this Sony Classics Blu-ray. Sony have quietly been putting out some great releases on Blu-ray to very little fanfare. I haven't seen many people talk about this and some of the other discs that I'm about to show you. They're doing great work, and these releases are all region free. So they are US releases, but if you want to import them from outside of America, then they will play on your Blu-ray player. And I think this is a fantastic film. Please do seek this out some way, somehow, because I think this one deserves more attention. Also from Sony, and this one was a revelation for me, and I'm really shocked that more people aren't talking about this one. They also released on Blu-ray the film The Bloodship. This is a silent film from the 1920s, which up until the mid-2000s was incomplete, but then they found the final reel of the film, and then it has been restored, it's been presented here, and this is a major discovery, I think. As far as silent films go, many of them were not so great and haven't survived the test of time in terms of how we look at films, how we appreciate films. But this one is absolutely excellent. The story follows this ship who has this villainous captain. He's a nasty looking guy, he looks evil. And when he is looking for a new crew to go off on this new mission, he ends up taking on these two guys who are the heroes of the story. One of them is a former rival of this evil captain, who his ship was actually stolen from this good guy. And then we follow the younger hero of the story, who has fallen in love with this girl who is being kept hostage on this ship by the evil captain, who may have some ties to some other characters in the story. Maybe I'm doing a really poor job of selling this, but it is an excellent silent film, riveting throughout, and the film looks beautiful. This is one of the best looking silent films I've seen on Blu-ray because of how much detail there is in the image. Unfortunately, there are no special features on the disc. In fact, there wasn't even a Blu-ray menu. I think the film literally just starts playing when you put the disc in. But the disc is region free, so if you want to get it from outside the US, then this will play on any player. Another recent release on Blu-ray from Sony Picture Classics is the film Crush, starring Andie MacDowell, Imelda Staunton and Anna Chancellor as these three women who are in their late 30s, early 40s, and they all have different relationships with sex and men. And they live in this small English town where Andie MacDowell plays the headmistress of this school, Anna Chancellor plays this doctor, and Imelda Staunton is the police chief. And it's a weird film because it shifts tone in the middle of the film. It begins sort of like Sex in the City. It's these women just talking about sex, and that's kind of funny and it's kind of shocking how they're talking about all these things with each other. Andie MacDowell's character falls for this younger man who she knew when he was younger, so that's a bit weird. And then it goes to some very dark places. Their relationships are thrown up into the air, there's fighting, there's all sorts. So It's a weird film. I'm by no means calling this one a masterpiece, but it's one that I really like, particularly for these three characters. And it's a bit of a comfort watch for me. And I particularly like some of the scenes that show the English countryside on film, because we don't see enough of the English countryside in cinema. Also from Sony, we have the film Secret Ballot. This is an Iranian film from director Babak Peyami, a film that was up for loads of awards, won awards when it came out, and has since not been talked about really. The film is set on election day on this small island, and this woman comes on this boat at the start of the day, and her task is to collect as many votes in this box as she can before the end of the day. And because this is a dangerous place and a dangerous job, she has a soldier as an escort. However, he was expecting a man, not a woman, so there's kind of friction there. And then there's lots of conflict and friction with the people that they encounter along the way as they're trying to get these votes. It's a great film that looks at the nature of democracy and some of the pitfalls of that. It's a beautiful looking film. I really like these two central characters as well. So fantastic film. Again, one that doesn't get talked about a lot. So hopefully with this Blu-ray, some more people can enjoy this film. And again, it's a region-free disc. So if you want to get this from outside the US, then it will play on your player. Next, I got this film, Together, which I had no idea even had a Blu-ray. So when I saw it on the listings online, I was like, yep, gotta get that. This is from the director of Farewell My Concubine, which is a huge film in world cinema, won the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival. This is a film that came years later after Farewell My Concubine, about this young boy who is a bit of a violin prodigy, and he lives with his dad who, you know, they don't have a lot of money, and the energy around his dad is a bit frenetic. I don't know how else to describe it. And they want to get the son enrolled in this prestigious academy so that he can go on to be a great violin player. They go there and he gives a great audition, but because they're not from a wealthy family, they are discriminated against, and they have to try and convince this jaded teacher to take on the young boy as his student and get him to a point where he is, you know, a wonderful player. I think it's a great film, one that doesn't get talked about a lot. It is the director doing a more Hollywood style of film, and I believe he did go on to make films in Hollywood due to his success on the world cinema circuit. This disc was put out by MGM. I don't believe it's region free. I didn't actually test it, but it does say region 1 on the back. Actually, it doesn't even say region A. And to be honest with you, the presentation of the film is not that great. You know, it's an old master from when the film was originally shown in the early 2000s, and this could do with a real restoration. So hopefully one day we get that. For now, you can watch it in HD. It just doesn't look amazing. And then we come to this film, Salt of the Earth, which is a film from 1954, released by Film Masters on this special edition Blu-ray. And this is a very important film because this is an American film from the 1950s about the inequality between Mexican workers and American workers. And it's about solidarity and unionization. And when the men in this community are not allowed to protest, it is up to the women, the wives, to go and protest for them. So this was a very forward-thinking movie. It's a film that they tried to not distribute at all at the times because this was going against, you know, the popular beliefs in America. It was seen as a communist film, not a film that they wanted to have shown in America. So from a historical standpoint, it's a very important film in the history of American cinema, and it's finally been restored and is available on Blu-ray. So that was just a quick look at some of the films that I've been enjoying on Blu-ray and 4K lately. Click the video that's on screen right now if you want some more reviews and recommendations from me. Until next time, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.